Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, I'm Jamie, and it is time to put together the TBR for December. So, December 2023 will feature a lot of rereading. So this video is going to just look at my rereading section of my TBR, because as always my TBR is pretty big. The Remember December readathon, hosted by a couple people and co-hosted by a couple other people, and I might put the information in the description. We'll see. I'm still constrained by the 1 hour plus upload time where I'm at right now, so we'll see how much goes in the description. But Remember December, hosted by a bunch of really cool booktubers. A lot of people are participating from what I've seen so far from TBR videos. There are a couple prompts for this one. So see if I can remember off the top of my head. There's one that's like, read it in a different way than you read it before. One that's see if you still like it or still dislike it, I guess. And one that you don't remember. So, for the ones that I don't remember, the one in particular that I don't remember is this short story collection, Selected Stories by Robert Walser. This is one that I read in school, in college, in a German short stories class. I remember bits, but I was really good in college at not really reading the things that we were supposed to read before the day of the discussion. And then in the 20 minutes before class, sort of skim reading whatever assigned passages we were supposed to read. And then picking up during the beginning of the discussion which paragraphs to read closer. And kind of rereading those paragraphs and actually reading them. So that I could discuss them. And I did really well with that, so that quite often it did not appear as if I was one of the ones that didn't do the homework. We had some really good discussions on those paragraphs that I actually read. To the extent that in one of the collections of short stories we read, the author was a mathematician and had incorporated mathematics into their stories in subtle ways. And Walser does that too. I do remember that there's one that's like the Schrodinger's cat sort of paradox. So I do remember that element, that this one and one of the other authors were studying mathematics, and did incorporate mathematical concepts in their short stories. And we had some really great discussions about that made me sound as if I did a lot more than just the basic homework. However, I didn't actually do the reading ahead of time. So, I've actually not sat down and really properly read this book of stories. I did a really good job of fudging it, and some of the paragraphs I probably will remember very well. Just maybe not in the context of the whole story. So, definitely remedying that, 20 years later, actually going back and reading the book. Yeah. Might be really good. So the do I still like it or do I like it at all anymore part of the prompts is going to be The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. When I was a middle schooler, so, 13-ish, I loved these kinds of allegorical sort of pseudo-fantasy stories. I grew up on Chronicles of Narnia, which is my stack, by the way. Most of it. So I grew up with Chronicles of Narnia, and I did understand by the time I left, like, 4th grade or so, that there was a lot of allegorical symbolism going on, and that was cool. And then I read Pilgrim's Progress maybe 5th or 6th grade, and enjoyed it the same way. But I was raised fundamentalist Christian, and then went from that to being an atheist. So I am not the same reader that I was when I picked up Pilgrim's Progress for the first time. I have reread it, but it's been a long time. And I'm going to be reading the Pilgrim's Progress and most of Chronicles of Narnia. My Chronicles of Narnia is starting to wear out to where they're not pretty anymore. And I'm trying to declutter just a little bit. And I'm not going overboard. I need to make room so that when I get more books, there's somewhere to put them. I think that's the goal. I'm not going minimalist. I'm going not so maximalist that I don't have places for new books. Yeah. So I'll be rereading both allegorical stories as a 40-something atheist. So that should be fun. And the Pilgrim's Progress I had before was an old, like, cloth-bound hardback. This one is paperback and has an introduction and, like, notes and stuff. And I am going to actually read those. So it'll be definitely different. The one I read before was just the book. It was an older printing with big margins and, old pretty book. Well, old pretty but falling apart book. So on my rereading stack, and I've already seen at least one video mention these. So I know I'm not the only booktuber that is a fan of the Dark is Rising series by Susan Cooper. I haven't read these at least in the last decade, so it's time for a reread. I loved them in high school. We did a paper in 10th grade. We did a paper in 10th grade where we were supposed to be talking about an inspiring or somehow, emotionally inspiring character, someone that you respond to in some way. And in that class, that paper was on one of the characters in one of these. I think Silver on a Tree is the book that I had a favorite character from. And, I don't remember anything about the character anymore. And I don't remember anything about the paper except I got a really good grade on it, which was nice. But, yeah, it's been a while, and I definitely need to reread these. I know when I read them the first time, I really loved the idea of, collecting all the magic symbol things. And if I was a teen discovering these books now, I totally would be cosplaying this book series. I definitely kind of edged towards the idea of cosplay when I was reading these ones, which I've never done, by the way. I've never done cosplay. I'm extremely poor. So going to, events that cost money to get in, we'll put it that way. It's just not ever been within my budget. And spending money to meet actors and get things signed and spend money, because, a lot of going to those events is spending money. It just never really worked for me. So I don't know what my teenage life would be if I was growing up right now. But if I could find a way, I think I could see myself being a cosplayer now. Actually doing the costumes, figuring out some way to get an allowance enough to be able to afford that subculture. And I would be the kind of kid that would be, doing these older, fantasy nerdy books. Anyway, yeah, so there's that. Chronicles of Narnia. Yes. -2. So I've already read some of these this year and sent them on their way. I'm trying to read them and then put them in little free libraries for other people to read them. And then eventually I'll find a new set and start over. But I've reread this series well over 30, 40 times. I reread them a lot just in my elementary school days because I started reading these probably the summer before 3rd grade. It's been a while. I did a lot of book reports on them because the teachers never believed that I'd already read all these books. So I could just, not argue about it and do another book report on them because they didn't believe me I had already read them. So it was fair game to read them and do a book report on them. And that freed up my reading time to read whatever I wanted, while I could just do my assignments on books that I'd already read and really was rereading anyway. And, it's not like I didn't read them before I did the book reports. Just they weren't on a time crunch. And I already knew what I was going to do when I started as far as, book reports and stuff because I already kind of knew all of them, all the books, all the events, all the characters. So it was just a matter of, refreshing my understanding of the details and stuff like that. Anyway, so I think the next one, I don't know. I could do Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, since that's still here. Or The Horse and His Boy. The Horse and His Boy occurs between the majority of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the end of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So those two kind of start the series as it sits here. Anyway, so I will be reading those. This next one, I'm going to be reading it and donating it to little free libraries or free shelves because I've already been listening to the audiobook of the author's preferred text. And that is Raymond E. Feist's the Riftwar Saga is what they're called. Magician Apprentice, Magician Master, Silverthorn, and Darkness at Sethanon. I love this series. Now that I've listened to the author's preferred text for The Magician, which combines the first 2 books into 1 book, and adds in stuff that was cut out and, doesn't change anything major, just, makes it a little bit more fleshed out, maybe. Now that I've listened to the audiobook of the preferred text, I kind of want to know what the difference is. So, and if you can hear a thing going on off to the side, that is my kitten. He has a ball and track toy. And it is the time of night when all of his energy comes out in waves and he has to do something with it. So, hopefully he stays over there playing with his toy because he has wicked claws and he does not understand the don't put them in my knee concept. Okay. 2 other rereads that are going to happen in December. And these are kind of in that, do I still really love this book prompt. We have the Canticle for Liebowitz. This one was one of my favorites. I read it kind of as a buddy read, I suppose, because I was reading it with the guy I was dating at the time in undergrad. So it's still been a while, like 2 decades-ish. But I really loved this book. And, the monk guy that's living on lizards. But I don't remember a lot about it. I remember the monk guy and the lizards, and I remember there's a spaceship. Yeah. So it is time to do a reread. And then the last reread for December of this year is actually literature, not sci-fi, not fantasy, literature. Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. When I read this book the first time, it was a recommendation from a guy. We were in a biology class together and had been doing study groups together, and I didn't ask him out because I didn't think he'd be interested. And at the end of that semester, I don't remember how it even came up, but he found out that I liked him. And it turns out he would have been interested. Yeah. And then he was going away to, I think, Chicago or something like that. So that, we kind of missed our window of opportunity if we were going to try dating. But we spent a while corresponding via email. Back when email was the way to communicate with, internet. Now we probably would have exchanged numbers and been texting, and you never know. We might have actually become better acquainted because email was a lot more clunky. Anyway, so we were not really dating, but kind of getting acquainted via email. And he recommended this book. If you've read it, you understand the connection here. This is a book about a love affair that involves a lot of correspondence. So because it was recommended by this guy, and I read it while I was also not exactly in a romance involving correspondence, but kind of, sort of, it hit me as a lot more connected to my life than maybe it does now. That's kind of what I want to see is, do I like it as much when I'm not in a weird sort of pseudo-romance with a guy? So it's one of those, I'm reading in a different way than I read it before, because I was really in a different headspace when I read this the first time. At that time, I loved this book. It was super, super relevant and lovely, and we'll see if I still like it as much as I did then. And then probably in January, I'm going to be rereading Simple Prayers by Michael Golding. It is also set in a similar sort of space, in an island, but still in a similar setting. And I'm not going to say any more about that one because it's kind of magical realism and kind of historical fiction, and you're not supposed to figure it out right away. So, but it was lovely and relates to Love in the Time of Cholera. Anyway, so those are my rereads for December. I will do other videos on the rest of my TBR because this is already 18, almost 19 minutes long, going on 19 minutes now, and I've only done the rereads. So I will do more videos with the rest of my TBR soon. In the meantime, I have 2 more days to try and finish some books before the end of November. I'm going to finish some more books before the end of November. So I'm holding off on a what I finished in November video until the end of November, because those last 2 days count. And the number of books I finished today versus 2 days from now is going to be quite a bit different. Actually, I finished like 3 books just last night. A lot of the books I've been reading, I read a bit at a time, and so finally a lot of them are getting close to being done all at once. And I'm getting desperate because the month is almost over, and my TBR is looking really alarmingly large from this month still, and I was hoping they would be starting to diminish. Anyway, so watch for more videos, and I will talk to you guys soon. Now I get to convince this video to upload and try and get the computer not to time out while it's uploading. Catch you guys again soon. Bye, guys.